As they pulled back, forehead pressed to forehead, the wrap of silence felt more encompassing than ever. "Against the tide," Laelani breathed, a fragile hope glimmering in her chest. "Always," Desmond replied, certainty threading through his voice. The evening lingered around them, a new beginning sculpted in the depths of desire. Scene 53. The unraveling. A hesitant breeze flickered through the opulent halls of Laelani Sinclair's home, laden with the scent of lilacs and the faint musk of freshly polished wood. The extravagant decor, gold-leafed frames, and luscious drapery failed to soothe the tightening coil within Laelani's chest. She listened, still, wondering if the stillness could mask the unresolved tension electrifying the air between her and Desmond. The subtle creak of floorboards managed to incite more dread than reassurance as she turned, half expecting him. He stood at the archway, framed in shadows that danced like memories behind him. Desmond's presence was magnetic, captivating. It cradled her fears and temptations alike. "Are you going to say something?" Laelani's voice danced lightly, betraying the churning storm within her. Desmond stepped forward, the deeper timbre of his voice coloring the silence. "What can I say? This whole thing." He gestured vaguely between them, frustration flickering in his eyes. "It feels suffocating." Laelani's heart pounded, the sensation overwhelming her senses. She refused to allow the doubt to seep into her resolve. "What do you want me to do, Desmond?" "Maybe, just," he faltered, pinching the bridge of his nose, gathering his turbulent thoughts. "I don't want to be a part of your escape plan. I want you. All of you." Across the room, Maya and Jordan entered, exuding the chaotic energy of close friends accustomed to navigating the complexities of unspoken conversations. As Laelani turned to greet them, the room lightened, the atmosphere momentarily diverting from the raw intensity thrumming between her and Desmond. "Hey there," Maya chimed, her bright smile contrasting the shadows creeping in. "We brought desserts." She raised several boxes triumphantly, an awkward attempt to alleviate mounting tension. Jordan, ever the pragmatist, leaned closer to Laelani. "We thought you might need a distraction," he met Desmond's gaze, layered with unspoken challenges. "A serious one." "It's always a serious one," Desmond muttered, the sarcasm sharper than intended. "Don't mind him," Laelani interjected, her energy flickering. "What kind of deliciousness did you bring?" She laughed, a sound tinged with an edge of nervousness, hoping to drag the mood back from the precipice. "Lavender creme brulee and raspberry tart," Maya declared, as if unveiling a precious artifact. "I swear, they will transport your taste buds to Paris." "A secret indulgence," added Jordan, his brows raised. "You need more of those in your life, Laelani." "Precisely." Maya nudged Desmond, whose expression hardened as he watched Laelani engage with her friends. "Why aren't you joining the fun, Mr. Sullen? Are you above dessert?" Desmond opened his mouth but hesitated, all his defenses weakening under their scrutiny. I'm not sure how to balance it all," he said, softer this time. The room hummed with the silent pulse of deeper conversations neglected, friendships strained, and truths unaddressed. Laelani felt the tension ripple through the atmosphere. No one would dare break the uneasy silence clinging to Desmond's last remark. In a moment of unexpected candor, Jordan stepped forward, the sincerity in his tone compelling. "Listen, Desmond, we all know this isn't just another affair. Laelani is trapped between two worlds." "Jordan, maybe," Laelani attempted, but he waved her off dismissively. "Let me finish," he insisted, the heat of the exchange broadening. "But that doesn't mean you get to sit in the corner with your brooding. If you truly care, you'll find a way to prove it without making it more complicated." Desmond's gaze flickered to Laelani, capturing a moment filled with hesitation and longing. Complicated is definitely the right word. "Aren't we all complicated?" Maya added, with an innocent smile, yet her laughter felt hollow against the building storm. The silence suspended like a taut wire. The shimmering tension finally burst when Laelani spoke, and every eye turned to her. "I need to know if this is worth it." Her voice trembled, filled with the weight of an emerging truth. Desmond, feeling the veiled challenge, stepped closer, the space between them charged. "You know I would walk through fire for you." His sincerity cracked open her heart, even as the stakes rose. Laelani felt warmth blossom inside her, the answer teetering in her throat. "And what if that fire burns us both?" The weight of unacknowledged choices hung thickly as she searched his eyes for answers. unaware of the shifts her friends now underwent, unknowing of the rift that was beginning to form around her heart, fraught with conflicting loyalties and reckless abandon. Desmond hesitated just long enough, the tension hanging like an unspoken promise between them, suggesting the possibility of love in the midst of chaos. Scene 54, Northern Lights. The chill of the mountain air wrapped around them like a silken shawl, invigorating and laced with the crisp scent of evergreen. Laelani stood beside Desmond near the edge of a hill, the jagged outline of the mountains silhouetted against the night sky, illuminated by the dancing northern lights. Waves of green and violet flickered overhead, shimmering like liquid jewels. "Remarkable, isn't it?" Desmond said, his voice low, almost reverent. His eyes sparkled with the reflection of the ethereal display. There was a stillness between them, punctuated only by the soft whisper of the wind, loaded with unspoken sentiments. "It feels like something out of a dream," Laelani replied, her eyes tracing the movements in the sky. "Like nature reminding us of how small we are." Her breath formed small clouds in the cool air, a reminder of the warmth she sought with Desmond at that moment. As the lights cascaded and blended in a symphony of colors, they moved closer together, the tenderness of the night wrapping around them like a comforting embrace. "Sometimes," Desmond mused, glancing sideways at her, "the world shows us the beauty of chaos, how everything can shift in an instant." He shifted his weight, his resolve palpable. "Just like us." A silence settled, charged with an unsaid promise, both thrilling and terrifying. Laelani felt her heartbeat quicken. A rush of warmth surged through her, as if she were being beckoned toward something infinitely dangerous yet undone, a reflection of her feelings for Desmond that teased at the edges of first light. "Do you ever think about what our lives could look like if we weren't bound by everything?" Laelani's voice trembled slightly, revealing her vulnerability. The backdrop of the universe encouraged secrets to spill out like stardust in the night. "Yes," he replied, his intensity unwavering. "And I want to share those dreams with you. But we both know there are whispers in the dark, things we're running from, your husband, my role. They won't let us have any dreams untainted." A breeze swept through the valley, and Laelani closed her eyes for a brief moment, inhaling deeply. It was intoxicating, this dream woven from desire and danger. With a sidelong glance, Desmond caught her gaze, his eyes smoldering. "But what if we could change the story? Write something new?" There was a gravity in his words that grounded her, pulling her closer like the threads of fate intertwining around them. "Could we?" she whispered. The thrill of the possibility danced across her skin. Or is it just a wish upon these stars? Before he could respond, a sudden clarity emerged within her, sweeping her fears away like fallen leaves on a gust of wind. "Desmond," Laelani spoke firmly, her voice steady. "I need to know. Can we do this?" "Only if you're sure," he said. "These choices come with a cost." "I'm tired of living for others," Laelani replied, her heart pounding as she took a step closer to him, their proximity igniting a tangible electric current in the air. "I want to paint my own future." In that moment, enveloped by the celestial wonder and the weight of impending risk, the world around them faded into the background. Laelani tilted her head slightly, and without thinking, Desmond leaned forward, his lips brushing against hers, tentative yet brave. The kiss resonated with all the uncertainty of their situation, layered with longing and unfulfilled dreams. It was a delicate collision, a moment where time stood still, and all the burdens of their lives fell away like leaves in autumn. Laelani pressed into him, losing herself momentarily, gasping lightly as Desmond deepened the kiss, igniting every unexplored fantasy within her. When they parted, breathless and wide-eyed, the northern lights continued their enchanting dance above, casting an otherworldly glow that enveloped them, a protective shroud from the world they had escaped and the dangers yet to come. "Together, then?" Laelani asked, her voice softer now tinged with hope, the currents of their lives weaving together in a tapestry of uncharted possibilities. "Together," he confirmed, the weight of shared fates hanging in the air between them, shimmering like the lights against the night sky, beautiful and fraught with meaning. Scene 55. Cascading Memories. The sun dipped low in the evening sky, its orange light splattering across the dimly lit room, revealing the meticulously arranged canvases leaning haphazardly against the walls. Laelani Sinclair stood before one of her unfinished pieces. brushes and tubes of paint scattered around her, the pungent smell of oil surrounding her like an old friend. Yet her heart felt heavy, burdened by the shadows of what had become her life. Desmond Carver, standing just a step behind her, sharp-eyed and eternally watchful, sensed the turmoil swirling inside her. He had made a habit of tracing the unspoken lines of her thoughts, offering comfort without uttering a single word. But even he couldn't escape the tension building between them. "Are you going to paint or just stare at your regrets?" he teased, his voice light, despite the weight of their reality. Her brow furrowed and she whirled to face him. "What do you know of regrets, Desmond? Yours are still looming, casting a shadow over every moment we share." The air thickened with unspoken grievance. Desmond's mouth twisted slightly, an expression revealing irritation beneath the cool façade he wore. He stepped forward, their bodies a mere breath apart. "You think I'm here to bask in your frustrations? You're not the only one with burdens, Laelani." From outside, the distant laughter of a group gathered on the courtyard seeped through the window. It was a reminder of the life they couldn't quite reclaim, the carefree joy that seemed so completely at odds with their clandestine lives. Before Laelani could respond, she was swept into a flashback, her mother's warm laughter echoing during a summer's day in a park, her fingers deftly weaving blossoms into a crown. It was a moment crafted from joy and innocence, a stark contrast to the churning darkness of her present, finding herself trapped between duty and desire. But then the memory was sliced through by the weight of current tensions. "Must you always throw your anger in my face?" Desmond's voice cut through her reverie. "Perhaps I should just pretend you aren't here, that you haven't been breathing life into this cage," she shot back defensively, the words tasting bitter and accusing. He scoffed, and the tension mounted. "Cage, or your choice of gilded prison? You can't blame me for your commitments." His words ignited a flame of jealousy in her chest, solidifying her vulnerability into anger. "You think this is about blame? I yearn for more than your rebellion or this lust for danger." Laelani found herself stepping closer, as if drawn to danger like a moth to flame. Desmond's vulnerability pierced the surface of their heated argument. "Why is it so hard to see that I want to fight every barrier for you?" His voice dropped an octave, raw and sincere, breaking through her defenses. In that moment, the harsh words fell away, revealing the painful truth of their connection, an undeniable, potent longing bound by circumstance. "Fighting isn't always a solution, Desmond. Sometimes it feels like you're challenging the very essence of who I am," she whispered, her voice quaking. "You're more than this world," he murmured, his gaze locking onto hers with a fierce intensity. Desmond reached out, tucking a stray curl behind her ear, an ordinary touch that ignited sparks between them. "You're worth the fight. You just have to choose to see that." The sweet, lingering brush of his fingers lingered, causing her breath to hitch. Their past encounters played vividly in her mind, moments rooted in sweetness but marred by chaos, and the truths about herself she had only begun to uncover. Before she could lose herself in his dark, promising eyes, the unmistakable ring of the doorbell echoed through the entryway. It severed the moment like a sharpened blade, shattering their intimacy. "Get that," Desmond said, his voice shifting back to a careful indifference, as if retreating from the tender seam they had barely begun to explore. Laelani hesitated, stealing one last look at the wild flame in his eyes before turning away. As her hand grasped the door, a chilling thought nestled at the back of her mind. What if this moment, this fleeting brush with vulnerability, was just the calm before the storm? Each choice they made seemed entwined with the others in a choking web. As she swung the door open, she braced herself for the unwelcome intrusion. "I'll get it," she called out, unsure of what awaited her. Yet inside, the question hung heavy. Would they find the freedom they so desperately sought, or would they be ensnared ever more tightly by the chains they had forged themselves? Scene 56, Unbreakable Bonds. In the dim light of the warehouse, where shadows pooled like ink against the concrete, Laelani stood against the cold steel beam, heart racing. The chaos surrounding her felt palpable, its energy weaving through her veins. Desmond, mere steps away, stared at her, fierce determination etched in his features, each breath synchronized with the heavy thud of her pulse. The scent of oil mixed with the faint tang of rust hung in the air, a testament to the place's sordid past. "Are you ready for this?" Desmond asked, his voice low but stronger than the clamor of shifting boxes and distant shouts. The tension crackled between them, an electric promise of what was yet to come. Laelani's eyes darted toward the entrance, where flickering lights revealed the silhouettes of restless figures, members from her husband's crew, unaware of the storm brewing between them. "I don't have a choice, do I?" she replied, her jaw set, betraying none of the fear curling in her stomach. Desmond grinned, a wicked flash that momentarily eased the weight of their reality. "You're braver than you think." The words lingered, making her pulse quicken for reasons she couldn't entirely comprehend. As he moved closer, the light caught his features, reflecting a mixture of mischief and sincerity. His hand brushed against hers, hesitant at first, then more assured as he intertwined their fingers, an instinctive act that felt like a lifeline. Each minute shift of air between them intensified the world beyond, a world they were on the brink of escaping. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the air, drawing their attention. In an instant, the atmosphere turned chaotic. Laelani's heart thundered as shadows moved closer, tight voices and rough laughter echoing. "Stay behind me," Desmond commanded, but she was done being a shadow. "No, we do this together." She squeezed his hand, the strength in her voice unnerving even to herself. At that moment, another figure stepped into view, a half-circle of laughter and taunts forming as several of her husband's men approached. Their faces revealed nothing but mockery, eyes glinting with suspicion. "What's this, a lover's retreat?" taunted Victor, one of the more seasoned members of the crew, his arm draped casually across the shoulder of a younger man gleefully waiting to stir trouble. A flicker of panic passed over Desmond's face, but it was quickly masked by resolve. "We're just leaving." He narrowed his eyes, the challenge unmissable. "Like hell you are." Victor smirked, his eyes darting toward Laelani. "I didn't know you had such interesting taste, Laelani. Brought home a stray?" "Let's not make this ugly," Laelani interjected, attempting to sound defiant while her insides twisted. She knew the tension was solidifying, deepening into something dangerous. Desmond shifted in front of her, a physical barrier sharing unspoken promises of protection. "We can resolve this without bloodshed, Victor," he said, his tone edged with authority. "Yeah? You think so?" Victor stepped forward, and in that moment, everything spun towards inevitability. The air thickened, drowning out the laughter and cheers of the crew who had gathered like vultures, eager for the spectacle. The standoff escalated. Desmond's muscles tensed, an animal ready to spring, and the raw ferocity in his gaze ignited something deep in Laelani. It wasn't just about survival. It was about freedom, passion, and everything they cherished in these fleeting hours. "Desmond," Laelani started, a warning in her voice, but stopped as he glanced back, something unyielding in his expression. No turning back now. Their eyes connected, and the tension shimmered in the air, a gossamer thread wrapped tightly around them, binding them together. Then, as if time had skipped a beat, the chaos erupted. Fists flew and bodies collided. Desmond pushed her aside to shield her from a swing that landed too close for comfort. The sounds of grunts and slaps rang out as fists met flesh. Laelani held her breath as fear and adrenaline surged, the dance of destruction playing out before her. Through the panic, she felt the pull to Desmond, an unbreakable bond igniting between them, solidifying her trust in this man who stood for everything she yearned to be. Desmond caught her gaze amid the whirlwind, his voice steady and low. "No matter what happens, remember this moment. One way or another, we're getting out together." "Laelani," someone yelled, and the world blurred into flashes of movement and chaos. But none of that mattered as Desmond closed the distance, cupping her face in his hands, grounding her in the madness. Their breaths mingled, and then his lips found hers, a fierce, demanding connection that stole her breath away. The kiss was sweet yet insistent, a brief moment of calm amidst the storm, a promise of resilience. The world outside faded, collapsing down to the heat radiating between them. And in that spiraling moment, they became something more than themselves, a unity stronger than the chaos surrounding them. As the chaos threatened to consume them, they solidified their choice. They were in this together, without hesitation and without doubt. Scene 57, Barriers Crumble. The heated afternoon sun poured through the large, lavish windows of Laelani Sinclair's eclectic studio, illuminating the canvas where her latest masterpiece still lay untouched. Color splatters littered the wooden floor, remnants of inspiration that had flown freely until now. Each brushstroke contained whispers of her emotions, the chaotic dance between loyalty and desire. Her heart raced as she stood hesitating before the blank canvas, fingers twitching in anticipation, wanting to create, but knowing that someone had disrupted her focus. Desmond Carver, her enigmatic driver, and a man who had quietly ignited the embers of her passion, lounged against the doorway, arms crossed, his presence like an intoxicating aroma that filled the room. His gaze pierced through her, setting her skin ablaze. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like to step outside this frame?" Desmond asked, his voice smooth as silk, laced with an unspoken challenge. Laelani turned towards him, her pulse quickening. "You mean to leave everything behind? To run?" She felt the weight of their situation pressing in around her, a palpable tension that made the air thick. "Yes, to be free," he replied, pushing off the doorframe and stepping closer, the energy between them crackling like static electricity. He moved with a predator's grace, closing the distance in her sanctuary of art, where every corner thrummed with possibility. "What if I'm not ready for that?" she questioned, folding her arms tightly against her chest, as if that could protect her from the storms spiraling around them. Desmond's jaw tightened, an intensity flashing in his dark eyes. "You think I don't understand fear? But what if the risk is worth it?" His keen gaze searched hers, unraveling every hidden thought. "If you wait too long, you might lose the chance altogether." As his words settled in, Laelani felt a fracture within her, a peculiar mixture of fear and exhilaration. She took a deep breath, exhaling slowly, the aroma of paint and linseed oil intoxicating in her lungs. "I want," she began, but the maze of her own heart tangled her thoughts. He stepped forward, lips quirked in an enticing smile, drawing her deeper into the moment. "Want what, Laelani?" There was a challenge in his tone, almost teasing, yet void of any mockery. It was a dare to strip away her barriers, to share her truth. "Want to paint a life filled with color," she said, her voice firmer, without shades of gray dominating the canvas. "Then let me help you fill those empty spaces," he murmured, taking another step closer, the world outside fading into mere background noise. They were surrounded by splashes of color, yet the vibrant hues seemed muted against the longing sparking between them. In that charged silence, he reached out, brushing the backs of his fingers against her forearm, igniting chills that raced up her spine. The intimate gesture was both fragile and electric, igniting long-buried desires. Art isn't just what you create, it's also what you risk. Laelani looked up, their eyes locking in a silent conversation that pulsed with urgency. Images of their secret moments together danced in her mind-stolen glances, fiery discussion, the way his laughter lingered in the air. "What if this leads to something we can't control?" she whispered, a hint of apprehension lingering despite the heart thudding against her ribs. "Isn't that the point?" he questioned softly, leaning closer, their breaths mingling in the warm solitude of her studio, thickening the air. "We can't play it safe forever." And then, without thinking, she bridged the gap between them, her hands finding their way to his chest, fingers pressing against the crisp fabric of his shirt. A sudden confidence surged through her, demanding she be brave. "Then let's paint the world with desire," she breathed, as she drew him closer still. The moment felt drawn out, electric. Desmond's lips brushed against hers, feather-light at first, igniting an inferno inside her. The kiss deepened, his hands cupping her face, as though he feared she might slip away from the art, the shackles, the perfect illusion of her former life. Laelani surrendered, lost in the swirl of conflicting emotions, a distant thought flickering as her senses danced. This wasn't merely about the two of them. It was about obliterating every wall they had built. Outside, the world moved on, unaware of the unspoken battles being waged within the sanctuary of the studio. But inside that sacred space, barriers began to crumble, unearthing passions previously hidden. They pulled apart just enough to breathe, eyes locked in a shared understanding beneath the weight of a newfound intensity. "Whatever comes next, we face it together," Desmond vowed, his voice low and husky. Laelani nodded, her heart racing, knowing that both danger and promise awaited them beyond the studio walls. Scene 58, beneath the surface. The candlelight flickered, casting warm shadows against the walls of Laelani Sinclair's art studio. It was a sanctuary, a chaotic canvas of half-finished portraits, scattered brushes, and lingering scents of turpentine and lavender. As the cool breeze wafted through the cracked window, it carried with it an unspoken tension heavier than any unapproachable canvas. Laelani stood before her latest piece, the dark paint swirling into muted hues under her brush, mirroring the tumult within her. She inhaled deeply, resting her hands on the table, briefly forgetting the world outside where her husband's presence loomed like a storm. It was in this small haven, filled with remnants of her creativity, that Desmond Carver had stirred emotions in her that she thought were buried beneath layers of duty. Desmond entered, his footsteps light yet purposeful. The room shifted, space constricted and expanded all at once as he approached. Laelani's heart raced in tandem with the subtle crease of his brow. It was the space between them that became electric, ripe with possibilities yet burdened with uncertainty. He leaned against the doorframe, his shoulders relaxed, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of something deeper. An appreciation, a longing, a fear. "Your work is compelling," he said, his voice smooth, like a saxophone under city lights. It broke her reverie. Laelani turned to him, hesitation shadowing her smile. "Compelling? You mean chaotic," she replied, her voice laced with a nervous laugh. "I fear my artistic genius may have taken a holiday." Desmond's jaw tightened, his gaze holding hers a fraction longer than comfortable. "But it's your chaos," he insisted softly. "You're raw and real. It reflects you." She felt the weight of his words. In a world where grace was draped in pretense, his honesty held an unexpected allure. "And you think that's enough?" A gentle challenge sparked between them, daring him to step into the depths of their shared insecurities. He stepped forward, the air thicker around them. "It has to be," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "We cannot keep pretending." A long moment passed. The only sound was the soft rustling of the canvas, as if it too awaited their next move. Laelani clenched her jaw, feeling vulnerability prick at her skin. It was too easy to fall into the delightful trap of Desmond's stare, to inch closer to a heat that scared her beyond reason. "Pretending isn't something I enjoy, yet so much of my life requires it." Her voice faltered, an admission that she feared would shatter the fragile moment. Desmond exhaled a sharp breath, frustration bristling just below the surface. "Then let's not pretend." He was so close now, just a heartbeat away, and Laelani could see the way his eyes searched her, pleading for something she hadn't yet granted him, the admission of her own chaotic desires. With resolve, she leaned in, catching the scent of sandalwood and his lingering heat, a mixture that sent shivers down her spine. "Desmond." Before she could utter another word, he cupped her face with a fierceness that ignited the air. Their lips met, a soft brush at first, tentative, as if they were both testing the depths of the abyss. But quickly it was more, a wave crashing against the shore, and suddenly the tension melted like wax, revealing something molten and new. As the kiss deepened, the world around them faded, swallowed by a rush of unrestrained passion. Laelani's fingers tangled in his hair, drawing him closer, pulled by an instinct she had long denied. Breath intermingled, soft gasps escaping as raw desire shredded the remaining veil of doubt. In that charged moment, both aching to break free from the lives that bound them, the realization washed over Laelani. They were not just wanting each other, they were needing to claim a part of themselves that had long been overshadowed. Desmond uttered a breathless murmur against her lips. "Laelani, But before he could finish, the unmistakable sound of a lock turning broke through their reverie. The door creaked ominously. They pulled apart instinctively, breathless and wide-eyed, caught between the desire for freedom and the looming specter of consequence. Outside, the resounding echoes of footsteps approached, a reminder of the life they were entangled in, a stark contrast to the intimacy they had just forged. She watched him, her heart pounding, knowing they had stepped into a world where love and danger danced a delicate waltz. "Together?" Desmond whispered, vulnerability etched into every syllable. "Together," Laelani affirmed, the weight of their connection heavy in the air, the knowledge of their intertwined fates as complex and beautiful as her art. Scene 59, Unraveling Truths. The dim light in Laelani Sinclair's art studio flickered as the city outside moved with a pulse of its own. A symphony of distant sirens and the occasional rattle of passing cars accompanied the charged atmosphere within the room. Canvases, vibrant yet chaotic, adorned the walls like secrets waiting to be revealed. Laelani stood framed by the warmth of the setting sun, her silhouette a poignant contrast to the shadows creeping in from the corners. The air was thick, laden with unspoken words as she turned to face Desmond Carver, leaning against the doorframe, his presence both alluring and foreboding. His dark eyes bore into her, capturing every flicker of doubt that marred her resolve. He stepped forward, the fabric of his shirt brushing against his frame, the collar open, creating a stark contrast to the austere environment. "Laelani," he began, his voice low and gravelly, "we can't keep pretending this, whatever this is, doesn't exist." Laelani's heart raced, caught between the architect of her desires and the fortress of her marriage. She paused, processing the weight of his words. A touch of electric tension sparkled in the air as she tried to find her voice. "I know," she replied, the tremor in her tone betraying her composure. "But we're walking a line that no one can see but us." "Maybe someone should see," he suggested, his jaw clenched, a muscle twitching as if battling a deeper frustration. "You're living in a cage, Laelani. Don't you want to break free?" Before she could answer, a burst of laughter erupted from the adjoining studio, where their friend Malik was entertaining a group with his ever-charming anecdotes. Unfortunately, Desmond wasn't the only one drawn to the sound. Eyes narrowed, he shot a glance toward the laughter, then turned back with a simmering intensity that beckoned her attention. "They don't understand what's happening here," he continued, the anger in his words morphing into a plea. "You're not just someone's wife. You're an artist, a woman with desires that shouldn't be suppressed." Laelani's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to lean into that desire, but hesitated, caught in a tempest of loyalties. She clenched her fists, stepping closer, the brush of their arms igniting something forbidden. "And what about your motives, Desmond? Is this just a game for you?" "Game?" he echoed, incredulity flickering across his face. "You think this is a game?" Malik interjected from the next room, oblivious to the crackling tension. "Hey, Laelani, make sure you save some of that passion for your paintings, or should we be jealous?" His voice was lighthearted, but the laughter returned, floating into the studio like a cloud of uninvited guests. Desmond's expression hardened as he forcibly turned his gaze from the source of noise. "You know what it is. Your husband's empire is built on secrets, and I'm here to expose them, all of them." "Expose? Or destroy?" Laelani challenged, her voice rising slightly, the fierce weight of her emotions spilling out. The thought of her husband's world crashing down hovered ominously between them. "Maybe both," he murmured, stepping closer, the tension now palpable as the world around them faded. "But there's more at stake than just his empire. This is about you, about us." Their faces were mere inches apart now, and Laelani felt her pulse race, each heartbeat echoing like a drum in her ears as she searched his eyes. Flashes of memories flickered in her mind's stolen moments, and shared breaths filled with urgency. Against the backdrop of canvases that bore witness to her conflicted heart, she leaned in closer, feeling the current of their thoughts intermingle. Just then, the door swung open wider, and Alyssa, Laelani's business partner, burst in, her excitement deflating the charged air. "You two, come celebrate with us. Malik has just claimed to be the next Picasso." In that instant, the moment shattered, forcing Laelani to step back, the ache of what could have been crashing down. Malik poked his head in, eyebrows raised playfully. "You guys look like you're about to paint the town red, or each other." The laughter echoed around them, drowning out the unsaid words. Desmond offered a shadowed smile, masking frustration with an amused intonation. "Maybe just each other, Malik," he said, the subtle hint of sarcasm wrapped in genuine warmth. As they avoided each other's gaze, their shared tension morphed into an electric undercurrent, leaving a lingering promise unfulfilled, twisting in the air like smoke dissipating into the night. Laughter continued in the background, but Laelani felt the stares of her own heart, lost in a canvas of choices, every hue a consequence of a world steeped in secrets. She turned to Desmond, a final thought simmering between them. "Where do we go from here?" Desmond's expression darkened, his answer hidden behind a mask of resolve. That's the question, isn't it? Scene 60, in the midst of storms, lightning fractured the night sky, illuminating the battered landscape outside. Desmond Carver stared out the window of the old car as rain lashed against the glass like 1,000 furious hands. The storm, a tempest fueled by swirling winds and turbulent skies, mirrored the chaos stirring within him. Nearby, Laelani Sinclair sat in silence, her frame tense against the plush leather seat, caught in her own cyclone of thoughts. The engine rumbled beneath them, yet the sound was swallowed by the ferocity of nature. They had sought refuge, unwittingly barricaded against both the elements and their unresolved desires. Desmond's heart raced, equally unearthed by the storm and the woman beside him. Each clap of thunder shook the car, sending electricity coiling through the air, stirring emotions too volatile to contain. "Do you think it will pass?" Laelani asked, her voice barely rising above the storm's roar, yet tinged with a peculiarly hopeful curiosity that cut through the gloom. Desmond turned, his eyes catching hers, the tension electric. "I hope so, but it's nothing compared to what's waiting for us when it does." The words hung between them, a flicker of awareness, of undeniable truth. Her lips parted to respond, but she hesitated, grappling with the weight of implication as another bolt of lightning split the sky. Do you think we can outrun it all?" Desmond dared to lean closer, the heat of his presence enveloping her. "We've been running so long. Laelani, maybe it's time to face it, together." A sharp gust rattled the car, and she responded with a breathless laugh, half exhilaration, half fear. "Together? In this storm?" She lifted her chin, defiance lighting up her features like the sporadic flashes illuminating the night. "Why not?" he countered, allowing his own smile to soften the seriousness, his voice a low murmur. After all, storms can reveal what calm days hide. There was a fierceness to his gaze, an unspoken promise layered beneath his words. Outside, the rain fell in sheets, an unrelenting barrage. Laelani's thoughts flickered to the sanctuary she longed to retrieve. Security, family, her husband, the world she had built. But then she looked at Desmond, his fervor, the spark of rebellion, a world alive with shades of gray in glorious color. "I can't leave it all behind," she finally whispered, the air between them pulsing with vulnerability. "Could you?" For a fleeting moment, the air grew heavy with the weight of decisions unmade. Laelani could see the turmoil etched in his brow, reflecting her own struggle between passion and obligation. Yet the storm roared louder, shaking at their very cores. "I'm not asking you to leave everything behind," Desmond said, surprisingly gentle, yet a hint of challenge glimmered in his eyes. "Just to take this moment with me. Here, right now." Laelani's breath hitched. The walls between them felt paper-thin, yet reinforced by years of societal expectations. Moments can be deceiving. True, but isn't it exhilarating? The risk, the fire. His gaze softened. What if this moment is the clearest truth you've ever known? He leaned even closer, nearly touching, their warmth in stark contrast to the storm's chill. The gravity of their shared experience bore down. The world outside a tempest while inside, sparks ignited hope, daring to flourish amid chaos. Laelani's heart thundered in time with the sky, and just as a particularly fierce gust rocked the vehicle, she reached for him, fingers brushing against the taut fabric of his jacket. Suddenly, a thought interrupted their infinitesimal connection. What awaited them beyond the confines of the car? Her husband's shadow loomed darker in the storm, his reach far too wide. Panic bubbled in her chest. "We can't hide forever." Laelani whispered, her voice cracking. Desmond took her hand, the gesture subtly grounding. "No, we can't. But right now, let's forget the storm brewing out there and cherish our own," he said, each word a soft call to action. Their eyes held for a moment longer, and the world outside faded, reduced to a distant hum as they descended into the calm of their shared breath. The tempest raged on, but in that stolen moment something had shifted. Where there was chaos, they found solace wrapped not just in the storm, but in the world they'd carved together, just the two of them. "Then let's not think," Laelani whispered. Her uncertainty transformed into unyielding resolve. "If we're going to face it, let's embrace it fully." Thunder crashed again, but they were no longer just riders caught in the storm. They were a force simmering to life, fists raised and hearts ablaze with passion. Outside, the storm continued its violent dance, But inside the old car, a different kind of tempest brewed, one of longing, love, and the fierce pursuit of self amid a world turned upside down. Scene 61. Promises in the dark. The room was dimly lit, shadows dancing delicately against the walls, their silent movements a reflection of the turmoil that swirled beneath the surface. Laelani Sinclair leaned against the cold, smooth surface of the fireplace mantel, the flickering candlelight catching the glint of her eyes as they flicked to Desmond Carver. He stood a few steps away, the tension between them so thick it pulsed like a heartbeat. "Do you ever wonder how we got here?" Laelani asked, her voice a soft whisper, laced with a vulnerability that sent a ripple through the air. Desmond's gaze was steady, lost in thought as he considered the question. "I'd be lying if I said I didn't." His reply was low, woven with an undertone of intensity that lured her in. She breathed in deeply, feeling the heat radiating from his body, a warmth she craved even more than the glowing embers crackling in the corner. Outside, the storm from earlier had rolled back, leaving a dripping tranquility behind. The rain against the window provided the backdrop, punctuated by the distant thunder. In moments like this, the world outside faded. All that existed was the unspoken bond between them. "It feels like we're living in a dream," Laelani continued, her hand subconsciously reaching to find the warmth of his, one that could shatter if we aren't careful. Desmond stepped closer, each step purposeful. "Or it could fling us into a new reality, one that isn't dictated by anyone but ourselves. Isn't that worth the risk?" The sincerity in his intent gaze sent her heart racing, stirring emotions she had buried for far too long. They stood just inches apart now. The scent of cedar and smoke mingled together, creating a heady aroma that intoxicated her spirit. Laelani's breath hitched slightly. She felt drawn to him, much like the tide was drawn to the moon, against all reason, against all prudence. "Desmond," she started, anticipation thickening in the air. "What if we—" "Don't," he interjected softly, a hint of fear beneath his solid exterior. His eyes darkened momentarily, two storm clouds swirling with a shared history of the wrongs they had both endured. "This is dangerous territory, Laelani." A silence settled between them, heavy yet tranquil, broken only by the rain's gentle patter. Then, as if drawn by an invisible thread, Desmond closed the distance, his hand cupping her cheek, a feather-light gesture that spoke volumes. "But promise me this, if we're going to navigate the darkness, let's do it together." Laelani gazed into his eyes, deep pools of longing, reflection, and something else. Something fierce that ignited the wildfire of her heart. "Together," she echoed, the words spilling forth with all the sincerity she possessed. It felt like a vow, a promise carved out of the very fabric of their entwined fates. And then in that electric moment, the world fell away. A whirlwind of emotions crashed over them, and what had once felt forbidden now overwhelmed them both. Desmond's lips brushed gently against hers, a hesitant meeting of warmth and spirit. Laelani's heart soared, nourished in that brief moment of connection. As they kissed, the outside world ceased to exist. It was a dance of intimacy, slow yet electric, suggesting a future fraught with both peril and possibility. Her hands found their way to his shoulders, grounding herself in the reality of his presence. This was not just a moment. It was a turning, a shift into something undeniable. A realization flashed through Laelani's mind like the lingering echoes of thunder. Could they truly turn their backs on everything they once knew? A vow to embrace the uncertain future intertwined with their secret was forming, yet it felt paradoxically solid. As they parted, breaths mingling in the stolen space between, the promise hung in the air, the promise that they would face the darkness together, hand in hand, heart in heart. "Whatever comes, we'll face it as one," Desmond said, his voice a husky murmur, the fervor in his tone thick and electric. The thunder rumbled outside, with the darkened room holding them in a fragile moment of hope. Against all odds, in the chaotic aftermath of their lives, they had found a flicker of light within each other. With a shared understanding, the future brimmed with the tantalizing thrill of the unknown. "Together," Laelani whispered once more, her heart now stitched together with the threads of promises unbroken, as they faced their fears and desires intertwined. Scene 62. Paths converge. A soft golden light streamed through the tall windows of Laelani Sinclair's art studio, illuminating canvases splashed with wild colors and untamed emotions. The air was thick with the scent of linseed oil and wet paint, grounding her in a world where chaos found its rhythm on canvas. As she brushed the gold across a swirling cobalt sky, djembe drums echoed faintly from the street below, the vibrant pulse of her community drifting through the open window. These sounds of life, reminders of the world outside, felt far away from her internal battles. Desmond Carver leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, a subtle smile lifting the corners of his lips. Watching her work felt like a theft, a scene stolen from a fairy tale, and yet he was rooted firmly in reality. "You have a way with color," he remarked, his voice smooth like silk. "But when do you ever create something that makes you truly feel?" Laelani's brush paused mid-stroke, his words striking a nerve. There was a truth in his challenge that tugged at her. "Maybe I'm afraid of what I might uncover," she admitted, her tone light yet edged with vulnerability. "What if the beauty I can create is just a façade for what's really inside? Then let's tear it down." He stepped closer, the warmth of his presence wrapping around her as if shielding her from the world's judgments. The laughter of their friends weaved into the background. Samantha was hosting a gallery gathering outside, filling the space with life and laughter, while Mark was making a show of trying to impress a group of newcomers. His animated storytelling had the crowd in stitches, completely oblivious to the tension simmering beneath their laughter. "Did you hear that tall tale about the mysterious heiress?" Samantha teased as she poured wine into glasses, their vibrant ruby colors catching the afternoon sun. "I applaud his imagination, but he could at least give me a better backstory. Who really thinks I'd wear velvet slippers? Hey, they looked good on me," Mark responded playfully, spinning dramatically on one foot, prompting snickers and a few shouts of encouragement. Amid these playful distractions, Laelani's heart raced, and she found herself drawn into Desmond's gaze, which held a depth of understanding that both terrified and thrilled her. "Desmond," she whispered, her voice breaking as if an unspoken acknowledgement hung between them, suspended in time. "Don't hold back on me, Laelani," he said softly, stepping closer, the space between them now charged, a taut string ready to snap. "Reveal all the colors you've hidden." As she regarded him, a reflection of her own concealed truths, Laelani surrendered to the moment. She placed her brush down and took a step toward him. "It's easier to paint a mask than to face the blank canvas of my life," she confessed. Their connection surged, an undeniable current of longing and desperation. The gallery laughter faded, leaving the two enveloped in an intimate cocoon forged by shared secrets and wild aspirations. Desmond reached out, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear, and his fingers lingered longer than necessary. "You deserve a life full of vibrant chaos," he murmured, his intense gaze piercing through her resolve. "Let me help you find it." A sudden rush of their friends burst into the studio, instantly rupturing the moment. Samantha, shaking her head with a smile, exclaimed, "You two are supposed to be painting, not brewing a romance novel in here." Mark waggled his eyebrows knowingly, diagnosing the atmosphere like a seasoned plot twist. "I see we've entered the emotional section of today's art class, huh? Should I prepare some deep discussion questions?" Laelani's cheeks warmed. She stepped back, her heart pounding from their near connection. The veil of intimacy was torn momentarily, but she could still feel the weight of Desmond's intense presence lingering. "Am I really ready for this?" She mused quietly to herself, just before Desmond captured her gaze once more. "Remember, Laelani," he said, his voice low, yet sharp against the burgeoning banter, "every masterpiece begins with a single stroke. You'll never know what you're capable of unless you try." And with those words, a spark ignited within her. She turned away, the thrill of discovery outweighing her trepidation, grasping for both the brush and her newfound courage. Scene 63, behind closed doors. The late afternoon sun bleeds through the sheer curtains, casting soft, golden light across the room. Laelani Sinclair stands at the kitchen island, fingers meticulously slicing heirloom tomatoes, their vibrant hues resembling the sunset outside. Each cut releases a burst of fragrance, filling the air with the scent of summer and a hint of nostalgia. Yet the serene setting is shrouded in an unspoken tension. Desmond Carver leans against the doorframe, his arms crossed. He watches her with an intensity that makes her heart race, but also ignites a flicker of doubt. The hum of their surroundings, A gentle contrast to the tempest brewing within fills the silence, a distant lawnmower, the chatter of children playing outside, the faint rustling of leaves. Finally, his voice breaks through the peace. "What's the occasion? You don't have to impress me with a salad." There's a playful undertone, but Laelani senses an edge beneath his words. She glances up, meeting his gaze. "Just keeping things fresh. Something healthier wouldn't hurt either of us, would it?" The words come out lighter than she feels, masking the weight of their changing dynamic. Desmond steps closer, an eyebrow raised. "Healthy? Are you trying to signal something? Maybe we should call your husband in for a taste test." His tone, tinged with sarcasm, cuts sharper than intended. Laelani's heart pounds, igniting a fire of frustration. "Maybe you should focus on your own life instead of probing into mine." She retorts, the knife in her hand trembling slightly. "Touché," Desmond concedes, stepping back a fraction, and the tension hangs in the air, charged and elusive like an electric current. "But I can't help but worry about you. With your husband, everything he represents." Her breath catches. There's concern in his eyes, a sincerity that momentarily softens the defensive wall she erects around herself. "He's powerful, Desmond. You know that. I can't change his world overnight. I wish it were that simple." She resumes cutting the tomatoes, her movements quicker now, fueled by her simmering emotions. Desmond steps closer, invading her space. "It isn't just about him. It's about you, your life, your happiness. What do you really want?" The silence that follows is heavy. Laelani's gaze falters as a wave of vulnerability crashes over her. "I don't even know anymore," she whispers, the admission hanging between them like a fragile thread. "This place is suffocating me." She sets aside the knife and leans against the island, her pulse racing. Desmond's expression shifts. The playfulness morphs into something deeper, more earnest. "Then why not take a leap? With me?" A flicker of defiance appears in her eyes. "And expose myself to your world of chaos? We're talking about life and death here." Desmond's gaze sharpens. Or maybe, just maybe, it's about feeling alive for the first time.